And we're live. Welcome today to the Live with Impact series. Today we are discussing the insights and wisdom of Omuugn. And I'm really excited about today's topic because today we're talking about redefining beauty. So if you're new here, we're going through the book, and today we are on pages 63 through 67. So if you have not got your copy, it's not too late. You can still pick up a copy online. The Insights and Wisdom of Omuugn. This is one of a two-part series, and we are going through every single week to discuss different leadership skills and different characteristics that will help you become the person that you always wanted to be. So again, I'm really super excited to have Omuugn himself joining us today. And today we're talking about redefining beauty. So I want to say hi. How you doing today?
I'm really great. It's a beautiful day. How are you doing?
It is a beautiful day. Thank you. And I'm doing very well. I'm just very happy to be alive. Every day I wake up, I'm like, woohoo, I made it another day. And then I try to see what I can do with that day that I didn't do the day before. So,
Yeah, as you get older, it's more of an excitement each day that you're still here and being able to contribute to life. So appreciate each day as it comes.
well, that's one of the topics that we're covering today is appreciating every day as it is. And in your book, starting on page 63, if I might be able to read for a minute, you say the idea that we're constantly surrounded by beauty is a powerful one, as it invites us to look beyond the surface of things and appreciate the inherent value and significance of the world around us. I love that. Right. So tell me, as you wake up in the day and you're happy to be alive, what are some of the beauties that you run into in the world around you?
Well, when I wrote the book, I ran into a dilemma. I wanted to present all of the different characteristics that make us who we are. And of course, beauty is one of them. The dilemma came in the form of there is so much about each one of the topics that we could actually write a book about each one of the characteristics. And so in the book, we just kind of introduce you to a topic. And the idea is that you would contemplate and go into your own awareness and your own life and your own experiences and pursue the concepts of these characteristics more in depth. And so one of the things that we're doing here today is looking at beauty more in depth, but it could be a book in and of itself, a voluminous work, which we're trying to avoid. We're trying to get the book report out of the concept. But I think it's a good place to start. What is beauty, and how do we perceive it? How do we react to it? Um, Beauty, in its expanded sense, transcends the realms of aesthetics. Like we look at sunsets and we look at landscapes and we look at things sort of generally, but beauty encompasses the interplay of our perceptions with emotions and meanings and the convergence of elements, qualities, and experiences that we have that evoke a profound sense of admiration, awe, and they resonate with us in certain ways. We tend to look at things generally, and generally, like a landscape is generally beautiful, but there are specifics in the landscape that are very beautiful. And the more we go into the specifics, the more we understand the nature of what beauty really is, the intricacies of design and how things come together. Beauty invites us, if you will, to transcend the ordinary and embrace the extraordinary. And we do that in the specifics. There are a lot of general things that happen to us, like someone smiles at us at a grocery store. And there's actually a beauty in that interaction of energy. And we sense the attitude and the mood of the person because of how they interacted with us. So we can see beauty in small acts as they occur, ephemeral things like a baby's first step. It's really, if you look at the parents when the baby takes the first step, they are totally excited and into the moment. And they see the beauty of the growth of the child maturing to this point where the baby is starting to move on its own. And that first step is just an over-the-top experience that brings joy and happiness and beauty to the moment. So moments are beautiful. As time passes, we experience all different kinds of things in a fleeting sort of way. And it's a real art to appreciate each moment as it passes and just see the beauty contained within it. So those are some insights into beauty in general that we should understand, I guess, before we really start.
Well, thank you for explaining those. And you just hit on several different topics that I want to hop back into one by one, kind of unpack those a little bit. But is there a way that if you're just drifting aimlessly throughout your day, you can stop or remind yourself that, hey, there's beauty in this moment. And if I'm not careful, I'm going to miss it, where you can just stop and become more aware in that moment?
Well, we're actually going to talk about mindfulness. It's one of our characteristics, but it's so easy to let the day just slip away. Uh, Life is so busy, and there's so many things to do, and we're involved in so many things, and our mind is going every which way all of the time, that sometimes we're not aware of our self-talk and the thoughts that we're processing. And sometimes we neglect to appreciate just feeling well, being able to move around and move our body and walk and go places. And I know some people are blind, which I empathize with them, but the ability to see and to taste and to smell and to touch and all the different things that we experience throughout the day, if we're mindful of those things, there's a beauty inherent in it that makes life really, really worthwhile. Uh, there's a difference between eating and really enjoying your food and tasting it and sensing the aroma and visualizing the prana, the energy in the food coming into your body and all of the processes that are beginning. It makes you want to eat healthier and drink healthier and eat at um, more beneficial times instead of just eating all of the time and snacking throughout the day, to have our body be able to rest. And we sense the different systems operating in our body. And if we don't do things well, we have illness, or we have diarrhea, or we have other things that are non-ideal. And so there's a beauty inherent in the harmony of how everything is done and how life is moving and interactions with people and how we approach our our jobs are not just jobs, they're actually expressions of ourselves in how we do certain things. And so our attitudes and our moods, it all creates a beauty that harmonizes and makes life really rich and abundant. Whereas if we just live on the surface doing things, we kind of miss the reality of what life is all about.
When you talk about missing the reality, you mentioned a couple paragraphs ago about tasting food. And I know that in our house, I don't know why, but we've always been kind of condiment type of people where we put sauces and flavorings on everything instead of actually just tasting the regular food. And in part of our attempt to lose weight and become healthier, we gave up a lot of the condiments. And so instead of mustards and mayonnaises and ketchups and things like that, we decided just to eat regular foods. And we've gotten rid of a lot of preservatives and we're now just focusing on whole foods. And it kind of tickled me the other day when you talk about tasting food, because my husband was eating a bowl of vegetables and it was just lightly cooked vegetables. And it was broccoli and cauliflower and squash and beans and peas. And he says, every one of these has a different taste. And I said, I know. And he said, who knew that there was so much taste in vegetables? I said, I know. But for years, we've just been putting stuff on it that kind of masks the taste. And it's interesting when you realize that every different vegetable has its own flavor. And he was eating this whole medley of different flavors without even realizing that he'd been missing them all along.
Well, that is an interesting aspect, but the way the world is moving right now, there's really, and YouTube and some of our social sites are so abundant in information that you can actually create a lot of these condiments that are really healthy. Like if you buy ketchup in the store, it's high fructose corn syrup and all kinds of additives that you don't want to eat. But if you grow your own vegetables, or you can procure things through like a farmer's market, you can actually make a very, very tasty ketchup that gives you a lot of nuances of flavor that you normally wouldn't have. We started making our own ketchup last year, and we started putting it in half-pint jars, and we realized that we needed quart jars because people really loved the condiments. And if they're actually nutritious and healthy, and you don't have all of the additives in them, condiments can really add to the flavor of vegetables.
Well, I love that you are a farmer and that you do grow your own vegetables and make your own condiments, and you have all of that knowledge. I am really guilty of kind of being like a microwave person, where if I can throw it in the microwave and in 2 minutes it's cooked, then yay, we get to eat something today. Otherwise, literally, I'm just going to let you skip the meal because I don't really do well with cooking, and I don't grow my own food. So I love that about you. I think that's very inspirational. Let's go back to a second where you were talking about a smile in the store. You said you walk through the store and you see a person and you smile at them. And there is a way, and I've discovered it myself, but there is a way where you can see someone who's having a hard day and they have a look of consternation on their face. And when you smile at them, you can actually trigger a moment in them where they recognize, hey, wait a second, this person is trying to reach out to me and they're trying to send me a moment of happiness. And you can connect with them and you can bring that beauty into their day. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that you would recommend as far as triggering that in someone else's life who may not be noticing those beautiful moments.
Well, a lot of times we're unaware of what people are going through. And like you say, it only takes a kind word or a smile or a recognition, or maybe a clerk working in the store is having a bad day and they've been there on their feet for a long time. You can compliment them on the job that they're doing and how efficient they are, and or maybe they look nice. You can always find positive things to say about people and to people. And just a word like that can change a person's entire attitude. It just makes the world a happier place to live in if people are getting along with each other and encouraging each other and taking the time to recognize each other, being aware of what other people are maybe going through. You can ask them questions. Uh, it looks like you're having a hard day, but you do your job so well. Uh, I'm just amazed at how you operate, you know. You can recognize things, but encourage and just be aware of people more. A lot of times we're kind of mindless. We go through and we're not even aware of the person who helped us. And every one of those people have their own life and their own situations they're going through. So we just need to be aware of that.
It's interesting that you bring that up because that exact thing happened to me a week ago. I had knee surgery and I went in and the anesthesiologist came in they're going to put me under. And she started telling me all the instructions. And I started paying attention to her and she looked really tired. And she kept shifting on her feet like maybe her back was hurting or she was uncomfortable. And she went through all the details. This is what's going to happen. And then the doctor's going to come in and then this is going to happen. And we're going to put these socks on you and we're going to do this and this and this. And she was going through all the routine stuff. And I looked at her and I said, you are really good at what you do. And she stopped and she looked at me and she said, thank you. I really needed to hear that today. I'm having a really, really bad day today. And she said, I really appreciate that. Then, lo and behold, I think she went out and told everybody in the hall because everybody that came in and helped me was amazing. I had the best staff that helped me through my surgery. And when I left, I was on cloud nine. Now, of course, I was drugged up from the surgery, but I was on cloud nine. I was like, yes, this is a dynamic crew that really knows what they're doing and they love their jobs and they're so good at it. And I was so impressed with the whole team that worked on me. And I don't know if it was because I said something in the beginning or that they're just really thorough or that they really have their systems down. But I did go out of my way to let the lady that started the whole procedure, I said, "You're really good at what you do." And it really caught her off guard. And from then on, I was treated like a VIP. I was like, "Yes, this is awesome."
Yeah, I'm against allopathic medicine in general and pharmaceuticals in general. Uh, but you know, surgeons and doctors really do have skills that are amazing. The way they can fix broken bones and do repair work and remove things that need to be removed, and surgical things that are just require such precision and accuracy. These people really do an amazing thing, and sometimes amazing things have to be done. If we're in an accident, our good nutrition is not going to help us except through the healing process. Doctors and surgeons don't heal us, but they allow our bodies to heal by what they do. So, yeah, you can find the beauty in the abilities and the training and the dedication that all of these people have in all of the different fields, electricians and plumbers and surgeons, and in every walk of life, even cleaners, house cleaners.
Well, and you just brought up a really interesting point, starting with the doctors and nurses, and then even over to the plumbers and the cleaners. It's interesting because those are professions where, and I want us to all pay really close attention to this, those are professions where people come to you not because they are well, but because they are ill. Something is broken, something needs fixing, and the people that come into their lives are complaining. I got all this problem, I got all this pain, I'm unhappy, and they expect those miracle workers to jump in and solve their problems. And they are often very thankless jobs. And so if we will stop for just a second and realize I'm entering a person's space and I might be the only positive, uplifting thing that happens inside their day. Please, can I make sure that my interaction with them is one of awareness and one of appreciation so that I don't take advantage of that doctor or that nurse that all day, every day, only people are coming to them going, I hurt, I'm in pain, can you fix me? That's a huge responsibility on a normal, everyday, average human.
It's true. And one of the things that we don't uh, really understand as we go through our habitual living as the days go by is that beauty really is composed of a lot of different elements. And if you really want to see beauty, you have to become aware of all of the different elements, some of which there's kind of a natural beauty. As you look around in nature, you see the mountains or streams, you see landscapes or beautiful landscapes in people's yards. Uh, there are intricate designs and colors and the way things come together that have a beauty. There's also the human beauty that's within people that we're talking about, where if people are developing their characteristics well, there's a beauty that emerges in all different kinds of attitudes and moods and emotions and interactions with people and as life goes by. And there's an emotional beauty. There are things that cause us to laugh or to shed tears or to empathize with people. Like you say, sometimes people are having a bad day and your interaction with them can just completely change their day. There's an artistic beauty where there are all kinds of paintings and poems and melodies and dances and so many different cultural things, uh, architectural things. Um, there's kind of an inner beauty, which are the characteristics that we're talking about, like kindness and compassion and the authenticity of people. A lot of times we interact with people on the surface level, but really getting authentic how's your family? What's going on with your job? How are things going in the economy? How are you dealing with all of the high prices and the inflation and what people are going through? There's also a cultural beauty as you go through, and with the internet and our ability to go to every place in the world and to look at the different cultures and the different kinds of folk things, the different kinds of dances and the different kinds of music and the different kinds of dress and attire and the customs that other people have, traditions. Those are rich sources of beauty. There's also a beauty in change. Everything is changing except the first three laws, which we're not going to talk about today. But but everything is in a state of change, and being able to see and appreciate the beauty in the changes that are taking place. None of us really want to become old, but we're all growing toward that in reality, I suppose. But the way we go there can be very, very different for people. It can be sort of a negative thing as you sense yourself getting older, or it can be a beautiful thing as you experience all of the wisdom and the learning and the different seasons of your life that add to each other as you go along. Fantastic things. You can see a beauty in the unity of things, how everything is connected in certain ways. Our nations kind of struggle because they have a problem in unifying their concepts with each other. And a lot of the products that we buy are produced with child labor in other countries under very, very discouraging situations. And sometimes we're not aware of those things. But if countries could see things together, if they could work together, life could be really, really different. And there is scientific beauty. Science is a wondrous thing. It enables us to have this online stream that we're having this morning. It allows us to communicate in ways that beforehand were unfathomable, like our Zoom family reunions that we have every week. The way we can access information and all of the intricacies of all of the computer chips and the science that goes into developing new products and new materials, such as the graphene and things that can conduct electricity much more efficiently, how we can produce energy more efficiently. And there's beauty in diversity, not the woke diversity that we find in the world today with 100 different pronouns, but diversity in cultures. People come from different countries, different backgrounds. I lived in a third world country for 2.5 years where people had dirt floors and very, very little electricity and no internet or things that we just take for granted today. But in all of those cultures, there's a beauty. There's the way that people live. Even people that had dirt floors would sweep them maybe 2 or 3 times a day, and the dirt floors were very clean. And in their culture, the way they live, the way they eat, the way they do things, there's just a natural beauty in the way people have constructed the lives in the conditions in which they live. So those are really, really beautiful things. How we, well, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I think it's interesting how we can drift aimlessly through our lives without paying attention to the beauty that other people see. I know that sometimes just the natural inclination is that we are judgmental, not recognizing beauty, but being judgmental because people are different from us. And I remember having a conversation with my husband one time where we were discussing the clothing that people wear. And we discovered that maybe we were not fond of this particular woman's clothing, but yet she woke up and of all the clothing in her home or her closet, she chose to wear that for the day. that might have been the best thing she had to wear, or that was the thing that made her feel the safest, or it was the most comfortable, or it was the cleanest, or whatever. But there was something about her choice that she said, of all the clothes I have to wear today, this is what I choose. And I said, is it possible that we could recognize that that was the best of her choices? Because I don't think people wake up and they say, I'm going to wear the worst of my choices today. But just to recognize that in that moment, maybe something doesn't match, or maybe it's poorly fitted or whatever, but that was their choice. Of all the things, that was the choice. And to just recognize that, hey, this was the best that they chose. And not just accept that, but welcome that. And so I've
Well,
started looking, it's kind of a game for me, but I've started looking every time, and that's a trigger for me. Every time I see something that kind of makes me cringe, I'm like, that's not what I would choose, but there's a reason why. Why did this person choose that? And trying to look for the coolness of it. Like, why did they choose that? Is that the most comfortable? Is that the nicest thing? Is that the flashiest thing, or the most delightful thing that they chose? And then just really appreciating it in the moment, because it is so different from what I myself would have chosen, and recognizing that what adds color and beauty to my life is something that is different from what I would choose.
well, everyone, which we've said before, has their own unique belief system. And for some people, attire, the way you dress, how you dress is a 10 on their scale. Where some people who have a different lifestyle, for example, may not make a choice at all. Maybe the way they get dressed is what is on top of the laundry that hasn't been put away. It's just the most accessible thing to them in the moment. And so that's what they put on for the day. So to some people, how you dress would be a 1 on the scale. And to some people, it would be a 10. And so that's another thing to be aware of, is people look at things so differently from different perspectives. Some things are important to some people, and other things are just totally meaningless to them.
And I think when it comes to clothing, I am that person. I think I've worn the same blue shirts for 30 years now. So if somebody gave me a different color, I probably wouldn't even put it on, because this is the color I wear and it's easy. And like you said, it's at the top of the stack there, hanging up in the closet. So it's what works. It's easy. There you go. But no, I do appreciate people going to an extreme to try to look different, or to try to beautify themselves. I'm surrounded in a world by glamour and makeup. And like you said, the internet is full of how-to shows. And I watch some of these shows where people will spend 45 minutes putting on their makeup in the morning. And I just look at that and I'm like, man, I wish I cared that much. I don't, but I wish I did, because man, they look amazing.
Well, there are people who are really beautiful people. Their proportions are beautiful. And the way people use, especially women, use makeup, they can accentuate things and make themselves more like a flower just coming into bloom, where men are more like the grass that has to be mowed every week. But within people, an example that's really on my mind is, in the early days of our marriage, my wife and I knew a lady who lived in our neighborhood, who was extremely homely. Homely would be a compliment to her. I mean, she was kind of hard to look at, and she was one of the nicest people that we've ever known. And so out of this person who didn't look beautiful, she had the most generosity and graciousness, and such a rich, loving attitude toward everyone, that after you were around her for just a little while, you didn't even notice her appearance anymore. You saw her for who she truly was. We tend to judge people on the surface, how they're dressed, how they're attired, how their makeup is, or whatever. And you kind of run into the Hollywood actor kind of thing where people put on this certain persona and they want to project this image into the world. But we see in the background on the news, not on purpose, but it's the way our news works. Those people are getting divorces, and it doesn't matter whether they're billionaires or famous actors or actresses. We see that their lives are not really rich and beautiful. They're actually going through a lot of things, a lot of turmoil, and these riches that we so value in our society don't really produce the happiness and joy that we're seeking. So there's a beauty inherent within people that we need to recognize, and we need to go below the surface and really see people for who they are, because you don't need to paint yourself up or dress a certain way to be a beautiful person.
Well, and you just brought up a quote that I was reminded of by Dr. Lloyd Glauberman. And his quote was, "Many people have money, but their lives are not rich." And that stayed with me for my whole entire life. And I've been thinking about that for a very long time. What does it mean to have a rich life? And you brought up something else about how on the outside, there may be the appearance of beauty, but on the inside, maybe not so much. And I'm drawn to the brochures that we see for travel because I love to travel, but all the brochures show people with alcohol in their hands and they're dancing and they're out on the side of a yacht and whatever, they're fishing, and I don't fish and I don't dance and I don't drink, and there's a whole bunch of stuff I just don't do. And so when I go on that vacation, my vacation looks really different from those pictures. And so I started thinking to myself, many people have money, but their lives are not rich. What does it actually require to have a rich life? And I think it goes back to this beauty that you're talking about, where you create those beautiful moments by stopping and being aware. And something simple as what really was beautiful for me was literally putting the smartphone down at the dinner table. And instead of eating in front of the TV, sitting there and having an actual meal with my husband where I was looking him in the eye and we were actually having a conversation as we ate. Now that seems like, a really silly thing. And while it doesn't cost us any money and we don't have to go on vacation to do that, that is what was happening on our vacations. We were actually taking time for each other where we were acknowledging our food, each other. We were making eye contact. We were having conversation. Whereas at home, we're sitting there in front of the TV eating, and I might have a computer in front of me. My fault, but I was waiting to go on vacation to have those real moments. And when I realized, wait a second, it has nothing to do with vacation at all. It has to do with how I'm showing up in the present moment. We started recreating those moments. And I get tickled the other day. My husband says, "Do you realize it was his day off? We've had 2 meals at the dinner table today."
Yeah, it's interesting that people don't take enough time to really design the life they would prefer to live. We sort of take life as it comes to us, and we react to the demands of the day, to the job, to what's going on around us. But we don't take enough time to really dig deep. As we were talking before, there's kind of a generality of things, and then there's a specific thing. And the more we go into specifics, the more we uncover the richness really of life. An example might be music. Music is beautiful. It can be beautiful. And it evokes our emotions. It resonates with us inside in a lot of different ways. And music transcends culture. It kind of brings people together. There's a richness in it. But there are a lot of different kinds of music. For example, there are marches, and there are symphonies, and there are operas and sonatas and choral music, and there's ballet and jazz and rock and pop and country and hip hop and electronic music. There's reggae and classical guitar and folk music and blues and funk and world music, and there's gospel music, and there's new age music. And every one of those has their own characteristics and nuances that make someone's life rich, depending on their belief system and what they're attracted to. I've never been a real fond person of opera. I can enjoy the singer and I can enjoy the music, but most operas that I'm familiar with are sort of based on negative things, and the dialogues are sort of negative, and it's not my preferred type of music. But there are lots of beautiful music that I do enjoy. And music is composed of a lot of different things that if we were to dig deeper into music, we could appreciate the beauty contained within it to a marked degree. For example, there's melody, and there's harmony, and there's rhythm, and there's tempo, and there's meter, and there's beat, and dynamics of loud and soft. There's timbre and texture and form. There's harmonics and counterpoint and orchestration, and there's a cadence to music, and there are chord progressions, and there's modulation and syncopation at times, and pitch and scale, and every song is written in a key. And most of our music has lyrics, and there's actually a poetry and meaning behind the lyrics in music. And if you watch any movie at all, there's always this orchestration in the background that creates the moods, whether it's a tense moment, suspenseful, or whether it's a joyous, happy thing. Music can create all of those different nuances in our mood. And there are certain things in music that we may not be familiar with, such as the modes. There's the Ionian and the Dorian and the Phrygian and the Lydian and the Mixolydian and the Aeolian and Locrian modes in music. But we don't appreciate the beauty in them because we're not aware of them. And so you can take something like music and you can start to drill down. For example, there are wind sections in orchestras composed of flutes and piccolos and saxophones, clarinets. But even like a saxophone, there's a soprano saxophone and an alto saxophone and a baritone saxophone and a bass saxophone, which are all centered on different notes. An alto saxophone is built around E flat, whereas soprano is built around C. And you have brass sections with your trumpets and trombones and tubas and French horns and euphoniums and cornets and flugelhorns and all kinds of brass instruments. And you have string sections with violins and violas and cellos and basses. And the percussion sections can go wild. You have the big kettle drums, the big timpani, and snare drums and bass drums, and cymbals and glockenspiels and xylophones and marimbas and tambourines and triangles and castanets even, or wooden blocks and chimes and gongs and cowbells and bongos and congas and djembes and cajon drums and steel drums and rain sticks and wind chimes and rattle shakers, claves and whistles and bodhrans and anvils and all kinds of things. So just in music is a lot more rich and deep than just thinking of music in general. You can drill down in all kinds of ways and all kinds of instruments and sounds and harmonics and how things come together. Music is so diverse in its richness. And all of these qualities are the same. Music is just an example that we're using here. But if you look at each one of the aspects of beauty, you can keep drilling down in all of those different aspects, and life becomes really, really rich and beautiful. I'm sorry I
Wow.
got carried away.
I was just listening to you and I was like, wow, that's a whole bunch of musical instruments and sounds. And oh my goodness. But it sounds to me like you really enjoy and have found the beauty in the different types of music. And I love that because I think there's both beauty in music and there's beauty in the study of music, the work and the effort that people have gone to. I know there are a lot of these musical competition shows on TV, and my husband is a big fan of the America's Got Talent or whatever the music programs are, American Idol, or I forget the names of them, but he'll watch these performers, and you see people that have spent years perfecting their craft for this one moment, and they show up, and
Absolutely.
it's a spectacular showcase. And I can only imagine the years and the effort that it took to get to that one moment. And then we watch it, and what a joy just to see their amazing performances. And there's also beauty in silence. And I think
Oh,
there's
absolutely.
a really fine line between, do we have stuff just going in the background because it's noise, or do we have moments where we choose to turn off the music and turn off the TV and do an inner reflection and enjoy the beauty that is around us in just complete silence? And I know sometimes I actually prefer the silence over what is considered noise or background sound.
Well, that takes us into a whole new realm of spiritual realities. There's really a beauty in stillness, in quiet, in prayer, in meditation, in mindfulness. There's an underlying order and interconnectedness in existence itself that flows out of the blueprint of creation, which we're not really aware of all of the time. But it's what speaks to our souls in heightened awareness and wonder, and it invites us to contemplate things. There's a symmetry in nature, the intricacies of human expression and interaction. Yes, spiritual realities are really, really beautiful because they connect us to the divine, to multidimensional kinds of realities, expansive and mysterious and intriguing. And it promotes wonder, and it wants us to explore and advance and learn and grow and develop. The spiritual aspect of beauty is really dynamic.
So I'm curious, if someone was going to focus on becoming more aware of the beauty that is just showing up every day, and they are a person of busyness and a person that's addicted to the internet, or they always have their smartphone on and they're always checking their messages and checking social media and the likes and the shares and all that stuff, how would you recommend somebody drop what they're doing and become more aware so they can enjoy the beauties of life in a more in tune sort of way?
Well, there are a lot of things that you can do. We've talked about a lot of them already this morning. But at some point, you need to sit down with yourself and ask yourself, what kind of a life do I really want to experience? How deep do I want to go into developing my characteristics to the ideal? Do I want to become a better person, a more well-rounded person, a more knowledgeable person, a more aware person, a more happy person? We need to start defining what we want ourselves to be. And then there's a process for each one of those elements that we want to inculcate into our nature. So the secret is whether you're self-motivated or whether you need to have a kick in the pants. If you need to have a kick in the pants to accomplish things and to move in your life, then you have some characteristics that you really need to focus on. If you're a self-starter and you're self-aware, then it becomes a question of asking yourself the right questions, because you'll never find the right answers until you ask the right questions. What kind of a life do I want to live? What kind of beauty do I want to experience? What kind of things really gives me joy and happiness? What kind of experiences would I like to have? What would I prefer in every choice that I make? Am I making the choice because it's in front of me and it's easy? here's a bag of potato chips, or here's an apple or a carrot or maybe a cabbage. Would you rather eat would you rather eat the potato chips or the cabbage?
The potato
And
chips.
99% of us would rather eat the potato chips. But
Sure.
if you look at life in a more in-depth reality, you would choose the cabbage because cruciferous vegetables add a certain dynamic to our health and to our microbiome and to things that are taking place inside of us. We're mostly bacteria, and our bacteria needs to be the right kind and it needs to be happy. If your bacteria is happy, then you're happy. And if your bacteria is all in chaos, then you're going to be in chaos. And that's the reality of life. You need to choose what type of life you want to experience. And then there are certain things that will fall into place that will bring that to a reality.
Well, I think it's interesting to stop and ask the question, and you just brought it up a minute ago, which is I would like to unpack this for a second. Are you sitting on the sidelines watching life go by, or are you actually in the game? Are you actually showing up? And it's a huge and interesting question to ask because so many of us let life pass us by. And then we look back and we say, oh, yes, this happened, that happened, but we weren't really participants in it. We were kind of there on the sidelines as life was passing us by. And it's something as simple as we watch a YouTube video. When you watch a YouTube video, did you participate or were you just sitting on the sidelines? You can jump in and leave a comment. You can give them a thumbs up. It's absolutely free. It costs you nothing. But it goes back to what you said a minute ago. It's like giving that person a compliment. It's saying, I was here. I participated. I enjoyed what you had to say. I learned something from you. And I've gone to the extreme of instead of just giving a like if I'm on social media, to actually give a little heart, which is a love. And it actually means something different to the algorithms. Did I like this or did I really love it? And if I really loved it, can I vote? Yes, I can. I can just click a little button and I voted. And I've made a conscientious choice to show up. I showed up already. I'm already in this moment. I'm going to actually participate in this moment because there is beauty in this moment. And if I don't participate in it, it's like the jump rope game where instead of you getting in and trying to get in with the rhythm and you jump in, you're just kind of a kid on the sidelines watching the rope being swung over and over again, wishing you were able to do the jump rope, right? So are we watching life or are we actually participating in it? And I think it's a huge, huge question we need to start asking ourselves because I got news for you. This is our life. This is it. We get one go around here. This is it. And so are you just aging, drifting aimlessly through the days? Or are you actually showing up saying, hey, wait a second, I have today. Today I'm going to show up and today I'm going to participate.
Yeah, it's funny, like with sports, you'll have 100,000 spectators sitting in the stands and only 22 people playing on the field in like a football game. And in so many ways, we're just spectators. We don't really get involved in things. It's fun to watch YouTube videos and actually learn. I'm actually involved in a project right now where I'm taking concrete and mixing it with air and soap bubbles and styrofoam and sawdust and wood chips and fiberglass mesh and different elements to create different products for the containers of my plants in my yard. And so there's a whole science behind these new technologies of how to combine things instead of using the old cement and rocks to just pour concrete. Concrete can be a very, very interesting medium to create all different kinds of magical things, from water fountains and features in our yards to stepping stones and plant containers and all kinds of different things. So life can be about as rich as you want it to be. It's one of the reasons why I admire you. You're not one of those people that need to be kicked in the seat of the pants to do something, but you become aware of things and then you begin to implement them, and it changes your life. It just adds a richness and a dimension to your life that is really, really interesting. So Yeah, we need to make those kinds of decisions. What kind of a person do I want to be? What kind of a life do I want to live? What kind of things do I want to enjoy? What kind of things do I want to surround myself with? When I walk out into my yard, what do I want to experience? I feel sorry for people who live in the desert regions, who walk out to their yards and their yards are just rocks and they're very low on water, and I'm more of a vegetation kind of a person. I like to see gardens and flowers and trees and all those things that you can design your yard around. So we need to decide really what kind of a life we want to live and what we want to experience. Those are
Well, it's
decisions that
interesting.
we make.
It's interesting you bring that up because I live in North Carolina where there is a lot of vegetation and a lot of trees and a lot of plants. And I'll go to Florida and there will be yards that have nothing but rocks, just rocks. And the weather will be very dry there and it's very hot. And in a normal everyday world, the yards would burn out or they would turn brown or whatever. And so people have grown accustomed to creating whole entire landscapes with nothing but rocks and cactuses and things like that that are interesting, but also in a weird sort of way, beautiful and unusual. And I find myself finding in every day, I call it things you don't normally see. And I like to take pictures of things you don't normally see. And it might be something weird or unusual or just like, oh, why is that happening? And at first it might kind of be uneasy to me when I see it. I'm like, ugh. And then I start laughing and I'm like, that's actually really interesting. That's an interesting piece of artwork, or that's a unique way that this person expressed themselves. And I like to take pictures of it so that I can go back and look at all the things that I don't normally see in an every average day, right? And so I think there is beauty in the weirdest, most unexpected places, and sometimes it just crosses right in front of us.
Well, a lot of times we're not aware of things because we're not aware of them. And it's hard to be aware of something that you don't know exists. For example, in the third world country where I was, uh, it was very, very uncommon for people to have toilet paper or toothbrushes. They had different ways of dealing with things, unique ways, and in their particular culture, it worked. And uh, we tend to not really get involved in a lot of those things in other cultures and diverse things. But like you say, there's a lot of things to be uncovered, a lot of knowledge to be gained by looking at people and how they live, how they've been forced to make certain decisions and do things a certain way. It's really quite fascinating and beautiful the way people have been able to solve a lot of situations.
One of the things I love best about you, watching you as I grew up, was your resourcefulness. Because instead of saying, well, this is not possible because I do not have XYZ, you would say, if this was to be possible, how would I make that happen? And you would cobble together little bits of this and that, or pieces of something, or an old wagon wheel with an arm of maybe a bicycle chain, or I mean something weird, and you would cobble it together and you would make something out of it. And I loved to watch your resourcefulness because you often came up with solutions where solutions did not exist. And I think that's one of the coolest things that I've ever discovered, finding beautiful and really odd sort of creations that you came up with in order to make things happen. And I've always admired that about you. Like, where did that idea come from? And how did he come up with that? And how did he make that work? Because most of the time it would work. And I'm like, that's really unusual and amazing.
I think that I've just been called a redneck, but
No, but I just remember so many times in so many cultures, including our own, people would say, "Well, that's just not possible. I don't have that." And so they would either need to go buy that, and you'd say, "Wait a second, there's another way to do this." Just like what you're doing right now with the concrete stuff that you mentioned. You're coming up with a new way to create planters for your plants. And yes, there are already existing pots and plants and concrete and whatever that exists, but you're coming up with a whole new way of doing it for some reason. And I love that you are exploring those avenues and then you're saying, wait a second, there's a new way. I'm going to give this a try. I'm going to see how this works. and then tweaking it until it works for your situation.
Yeah, it's fun. It's an interesting way to approach life, where you're sort of on the outskirts of your comfort zone, and you're forced to kind of create and be imaginative. Like I was saying, when you walk into a room or into your yard or into any place in your environment, what could you do to make that environment better? That would be more to you, what you would prefer to experience. Uh, you can actually be very imaginative and create things. One of my objectives in my own yard is that every place that I would be in my yard, I would like it to be a unique experience, and an experience where I would want to be. I created a two-story tree house tower in one of our yards, and I made the steps in a certain way. I made them wider and bigger and thicker than a normal step would be. And the idea was that you would enjoy just being on those steps, not even being where you were intending to go, but just being on the steps themselves would be a kind of a magical experience. And so the steps were designed in a very creative, imaginative way that was different than you would normally build steps. So you can create your life any way you want it to be. I've always enjoyed being surrounded by books, and I've been an avid reader my whole life. But books create a certain energy in a room. Like this, my study here that I'm in, I'm surrounded by books that I've read and I love, and they have their own energies and the beauty that kind of creates the world that I want to live in. If I were in just a stark room with painted walls and no murals or decorations or books or instruments or things that I enjoy, it would be a kind of a meaningless room unless I were in a state of meditation or contemplation or mindfulness. There are places for that, but we can create different rooms for different experiences that we want to have. We can have a gym in our home where we can exercise and stretch and move our muscles and develop our strength. We can have a music room where we have our instruments and our pianos and different things, or libraries or study areas, business areas. Our dining area should be very conducive to how we want to experience our food, how accessible things are. There's just so many ways to look at every facet of our lives and make it beautiful, make it rich, make it abundant. Yeah, we can create our life any way we want to create it. So go ahead.
I want to highlight that growing up, it was a unique experience, and one also of ultimate beauty, that in the home we grew up in, you had created a room that was for more or less a prayer or an inspiration room, where we could go in there, and it did have stark walls, and it was empty and completely clean. And when one went in there, it was with the intention of leaving the cares of the world behind you. So you could go in there and you could be one with yourself and your creator, and you could have that little private space where you could sit and think and pray or meditate or whatever. And I remember a rule of the room being, don't bring the outside in with you. Don't be bringing in your arguments and your frustrations and your anxieties, and no talking and all that stuff. This is literally a quiet meditation room. And I don't think a lot of homes have that, but I really appreciated having that in our home so that we could, with all the cares of the everyday world around us, that we could escape, if for nothing else, and go in there and have a private space where we could leave the world behind, and we could just enjoy the beauty of either what was going on inside our head, or, like I say, be one with the creator.
Well, we're about out of time, I know, but if you want your life to really be rich, you need to connect with the divine, the creator and the redeemer, and the reality of multi-dimensions and the reality of life has to be deep and rich for you to have a deep, rich life. And if you miss that element, you've missed really what life is about. So I encourage everyone to go on a quest for beauty in everything.
Yay. Oh, our time is up, and I'm so sad. This is like the saddest part of my day now, that I've had so much fun with you. And then we wrap it up, and then now it's over. So next week, we are covering our belief system. And the belief system either limits us or empowers us. Ah, that's going to be a great one, and I can't wait for that. That's page 69 through page 76. And that is, again, the insights and wisdom of Omuugn. For those of you that are joining us, this is Omuugn, and he's meeting with us every Saturday to kind of unpack the wisdom from his book. So please join us again next week. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Omuugn, for your time and energy and effort. And like I say, please enjoy your beautiful week.
It's been good to be here. Thank you.